rivers down to Eureka, you see a lot of variability in aquatic plants. A lot more hydrilla than there used to be, but it depends on water clarity. Like the gentleman who mentioned the lack of submerged plants on the St. John's, a lot of that I attribute, and I've had these discussions with different aquatic plant biologists, fisheries people, members of the public like yourself. The dark water we had for the previous 2.5 years greatly influences, again, in my opinion, the submerged aquatic plants, because the sunlight can't get to them, because we've had so much rainfall. We had these huge rain events, in Matthew and Irma, and they disrupt, in my observations. I couldn't see what submerged plants were in Rodman for 2.5 years. It was only about 3-4 months ago the water started clearing up enough because of less rainfall that I could see what plants were starting to grow back on the bottom.
I'm not questioning or arguing that the weather has a lot to do with that. I understand the water clarity has a lot to do with that. I'm just saying that we can't make the comparison that those native plants come back because of the drawdown.
Well, I've seen another example of that is the 2012 severe drought.
Yes.
And Sally will know, with her job as manager of Silver Springs, Silver River State Park. I remember looking at the flow gauges, and I remember being at a meeting at the Water Management District where someone claimed water was being pumped out of the Ocklawaha River because the levels, to get this right, there's gauges all up and down the system, USGS online, that you can look at 24/7 about what the flows are out of Silver Springs, Upper Ocklawaha, through the dam, all up and down the system, and state line, and rivers all over the system and lakes. So it looked like it was less flow downstream from Silver Springs in the Upper Ocklawaha. This is in 2012, and everybody was watching water severely. I mean, and everybody was calling, what are you doing with the water? There wasn't any. Nothing out of Moss Bluff. Silver less than 1/3 its historic average. It was gin clear, and the hydrilla went crazy. The hydrilla grew up so high in the Silver, just below there at Silver and Ocklawaha confluence, it was creating a dam. The hydrilla made a hump in the river that increased the elevation of the Silver River behind it.
Yes.
So that gave false readings of what the flows were.
For that moment in time, time period.
And that's
I agree with you. And I think that we just have to be really careful that we're not taking pinpoint moments in time and making an equivalent.
Well, and I agree.
And I have heard that quite a bit. And I just want to say, my job actually is quality control and data management, so I'm really comfortable with looking at long-term trends.
Right. Yes.
So I don't want us to put too much point of time
on snapshots.
On a snapshot.
On snapshots.
Yes.
Right.
And my question would be, your point also, the dollars that have been spent in maintaining and drawing down is both sides of the argument, and I understand there's validity everywhere. We still don't have really the data that we need to do co-evaluation. I don't understand during the drawdown period why we don't concentrate our monitoring efforts far greater. I realize that's not your responsibility per se. Testing, when you have that opportunity, is really not that expensive, particularly when you have state-funded DEP and Water Management District laboratories. I would like to see a lot of data be made available during these drawdown periods so that we can have some assurance on what we're doing. One drawdown won't be sufficient. We need to have, again, that long-term period so that we can see that.
And it was done, I wish it had been continued longer.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of that work got done during drier periods. I wish we had the data from the previous, 4 years to add into that. So I wholeheartedly agree with you on that.
And expanded parameters, though. I think that's more an asking for not only the duration, expanded parameters of analyses, because we don't have data for synthetic organic contaminants. We don't have data to substantiate the man-made influence that we have created or not. We don't have data to show what those springs would flow. You can monitor where those springs are flowing. I know I've read many times it's difficult to monitor from a submerged spring, and of course it is, it's not flowing.
Right.
When it's flowing, why are we not monitoring it?
There is some of that has been done, but it's not being done to my knowledge. But
very minimal parameters, and that's all I'm saying is I think that should be a part of the conversation while the drawdown is occurring, that we take the greatest benefit of that time to provide data that gives us certainty and it gives us at least a better snapshot.
And again, every drawdown is different so far in my experience. Yes.
So this is actually, I guess, a piggyback question to those comments. I've been spending a lot of time in the last few weeks kind of digging through various climate change reports and such, and Matthew and Irma have come up quite a few times as hurricane events that have incurred far greater costs in terms of maintenance frequent as climate change intensifies. And I really want to know, in terms of drawdowns, and of course the question of whether or not to maintain the dam, how and whether climate change is being considered.
Now, I mean, this drawdown is how it's been done the previous 20 years to the 11-foot level. You know, the whole climate change argument, and we all know it's pretty controversial, depending on what viewpoint.
It's not.
Scientifically, it's not.
Well, whether you believe it or not, it's controversial. And again, we're not here to discuss climate change, so.
Well, FLDEP, to follow on that, FLDEP has a planning document in
Yeah.
terms of climate change adaptation and mitigation. That, of course, I know this is sort of another agency. This
Right.
is another agency.
Right.
But there are certain factors that need to be included in certain plans, particularly under the Acquisition Restoration Council. And this is a different sort of legal body, but I just want to know whether and how those concerns are being factored in.
Well, and I know our department has an Office of Coastal Resiliency. They're, you know, working on all these issues. There's been a lot of, you know, high-level meetings around the state as they're looking at all the different algae issues and all that, and continue to work with FWC, the federal agencies and all that to find the best solutions. I mean, this is all, you know, new stuff for, I think, everybody. And we're trying to be proactive in addressing it as best we can. Yes, sir.
I want to go back to what you said about the extended drawdown and the Rodman advocates. Let me make sure I have this right. The Rodman advocates didn't trust the government to not bring it back up.
I had that said to me, but it's somebody who's deceased now.
Okay. Probably, maybe Ed did.
No comment.
Okay, but I think I support the government's plan, the state plan, which says, and this has been since the mid-90s, and this is the new 10-year Greenways plan. If funds are made available and permits are issued, it is the intent of the FDEP to undertake the partial restoration plan. And it's got 3 pages describing all of it. And I think most everyone in here, well, everyone that raised their hand supports this. We support the restoration.
Right.
We don't always trust the government, but why does a small fraction of people, why are they able to work this plan when so many people support it? Because a lot of people really do support restoration.
Well, the question was asked, how many people support restoration? And a bunch of people raised their hand. There were, you know, I'm standing up here, I saw a number that didn't. I'm not gonna say who's got the majority, and it doesn't really matter. But, you know, it's a political issue as far as, you know, funding and permitting. And that's, you read it exactly as I stated earlier, that if there's ever funding and permitting, and the DEP pursues that project, then so be it. We'll implement it to the best of our ability.
So
Which is
well,
what-
permitting is political? Why would the permitting ever be political?
Well, the funding is political.
And I want to make a point, the reason there is a drawdown is because it's not a naturally functioning ecosystem. If it was a naturally functioning ecosystem, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion because there wouldn't be a drawdown. But the problem is we can't just look at it as it impacts a small area that's the pool. This has impacts all the way to the lower St. John's as well as Silver Springs. Every time there's a drawdown, there's a big impact to the St. John's River. Every time they start filling back up, there's an impact to the St. John's River. Every day the dam's in place, there's a negative impact to the St. John's River. And so this isn't just a discussion about one small geographical area. It impacts so many other waterways and so many people's lives. And so I just want to make sure we're looking at the bigger picture on the drawdown itself, because there's impacts that come with that, but also in the long-term discussion.
And all these systems are interconnected and influence each other. I agree. Yes?
So I understand the river, even during the drawdown, wildlife can't really, like migratory fish and manatees, still controlled by the dam.
They go through the lot.
Even though it's drawn down. But I'm wondering if there are advocates or studies of all those, the drowned forests, if those could be forested wetlands, as a wildlife corridor. It seems like that's something we really need in Florida, and it's there in this Greenways area. So do you have information or are there studies on that?
So you're saying if restoration was implemented, would the lands that would, the former river floodplain forest function as a wildlife corridor?
It seems that when I'm there when the water's high, I see, like you were saying, so many more animals, all kinds of when there's a drawdown. And the on banks, I mean, there aren't any banks otherwise, so it seems like they would again use that as a passing, but you're not gonna know anything.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's open when the water's down, so it's easier to observe wildlife. I mean, I see wildlife all around there normally when it's got water in it or not. But, you know, I'm sure terrestrial species would use those areas if they were dewatered permanently.
I would hope that you know more about fish species than you're showing by stating that, because you're not going to get migratory fish and animals that are used to swimming upstream to go into springs, going through a big long canal like that.
Well,
So just opening that lock is not going to get you migratory species into that
Okay,
system.
well, I do know that eels are found upstream from the lock and dam, and other anadromous species, mullet. Yeah, I've seen mullet in Silver River, some of the biggest mullet I've ever seen.
What about the species that are now missing from the river, that need that freshwater flow to swim up and spawn? Like every dam that's been removed so far has, the rivers have just abounded with wildlife. Because there's certain species of fish and aquatic animals that need to go fight the flow, go into those colder waters to spawn or do whatever they do at different times of the year. So I'm shocked to hear you say
Well, I just know
that they
creel,
just come in when we open the lock.
well, from creel studies that FWC's done, and I've seen schools of shad and the striped bass, sunshine bass move through there into the reservoir. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. So, yes, sir.
Well, I'm sure you know Dr. Bob Knight. And he's done studies, and he cites them every time he makes a presentation, that in Silver Springs, the biomass has been diminished by 95% in the last 40 years.
Right.
So if the dam doesn't play a role, have you heard from any biologists what could account for such a decline in fish in Silver Springs?
I've heard people hypothesize the degraded water quality. You know, nutrient levels are vastly increased there. I've also have people I work with whose dad used to sell Ross Allen catfish that he would stock in the head spring, you know, for the tourist attraction. So, and I mentioned that at a Silver Springs Alliance meeting, and it was looked at like I was Satan. Yes, sir.
Follow up with what you were saying, yes, Dr. Knight does say that, yes, there are some problems, nutrients, some of the problems. Some of the problem is also drawdown, because some of the people in Florida sucking water out. But also part of the problem is the dam and the free flow of the water. So it's a combination of things. So to mitigate this, one of the best things to do is get rid of that doggone dam. I mean, it's tough to get rid of all the people in Florida. It's not a nice thing to do. And we need water, but one of the things we can do to mitigate this whole thing is to get the river flowing again, so we'll get some of the wildlife back up here, who should be up here, and you're right, it's actually, it says 92%, but that's what's around it as well. That's one problem we can actually work on.
Yes.
I would just add to that, in Maine, they are getting rid of these dams. And the amount of biomass or the wildlife that has come back has doubled. It has tremendous positive economic impact, because that's what people want to come and see. If you want to protect what's left of Florida and enhance it, the Ocklawaha could be one of those last wild rivers.
Yes, sir. Okay.
I'm actually going to try to keep it on point for you.
Thank you.
Couple of things mentioned on the studies and the impacts of these drawdowns. I'm quite curious as to how, and I'm sure as you're flushing that sediments out of Rodman, it is pretty much a crazy impact to the St. John's, the Willaca area in particular. I know it changes that whole system from the dam down, because you have to push a lot of water out of there. It also changes the temperature of the water, maybe not so much during the winter, but I don't know if I could find that on the site. If it's really, really studied, how much that material affects the St. Johns River. I mean, I know I've measured the water temperatures, and it's 6 to 8 degrees hotter in the Rodman Pool through the summer.
As far as the nutrient loading, I know the cup permit that was from 98 to 18 had nutrient thresholds that we could not exceed with the drawdowns, and based on comments from water management staff, we never exceeded those nutrient thresholds when the water being released or when the reservoir was being refilled. We were never notified of any violation that we ever did anything that was above beyond what the threshold was.
So you have to kind of put it out at a certain rate so it doesn't shoot too much stuff out.
Well, I think, no, it's basically the, you know, the flow regimes for the drawdowns, don't carry so many sediments or nutrients that it's exceeding what the legal thresholds are.
So does it really just push it more into the back, the pool behind the dam? I mean, do you really get a complete clean out, or does it just put more sediment depth in?
I mean, you're dewatering 2/3 of the reservoir, not 100%.
Right, I just didn't know how much sediment actually got reduced.
I don't think anybody knows that
Or
at
is
this point,
it-
to my knowledge, or it would be somebody who's, you know, a scientist with one of
So-
our agency or water management.
Are they monitoring that downstream or not?
Just with gauges testing water quality. to my
So they're not
knowledge.
really monitoring. So most of it is just to air out the submerged
The oxidized
ground,
bodies.
oxidize that. Okay.
Well, it's got multiple
Would,
reasons for doing it.
would you ever consider drawdown like through the summer to change the water temperatures and?
Yeah, I mean, Rodman's over 50 years old now. In a perfect world, and Dave recommended this, and we discussed it at some of the agency stakeholder meetings, doing extended drawdowns of about 2 years. But again, there was a distrust on the part of the Save Rodman side. And also, I remember Ed Taylor had Senator Lynn with him at one of those meetings, and she said, you know, she was still in the state senate, and said there will be no extended drawdown until you all do an economic study to look at what the impacts or effects would be of an extended drawdown.
Well, I don't mean extended, I'm sorry, extended drawdown, I meant a different time period drawdown. Has it ever been considered what?
Yeah,
A
well, they did
non-winter
experimental,
drawdown.
they did experiment some of the experimental drawdowns in the 79 to 83 study I mentioned earlier. And in the summertime, the dissolved oxygen is lower because of the hotter water. It physically can't hold as much dissolved oxygen, and they cause fish kills by doing drawdowns in warmer months. So that's why we do it.
Was that down in the pool where there's no shade? I mean, you got no trees.
I wasn't around then, so I'm not sure exactly where it didn't happen.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to comment on the fish story in the silver, because that comes up a lot. But some students recently did another fish count in the last couple months under Bob Knight's permit, and all the fish numbers are up. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that prior to 2012, a lot extended period of drought years. Now we've had a lot of higher water where the floodplain gets wet. Fish go out into that as habitat and breed. So we've seen a good recovery in fish numbers in the
I
silver.
kayaked Silver River with my family on a camping trip, Martin Luther King weekend, several times in the last few years. I was pretty impressed with the amount of fish abundance, particularly mullet, that I saw in there, where my daughter was sitting there going, yeah, in the kayak.
They're back up.
Yes.
Speaking of wildlife, you mentioned the large mouth bass rule going to be implemented during the drawdown, and I was just wondering if
As
there
far
are
as I know.
Oh, sorry.
I said, as far as I know.
Okay, or do you know of any other wildlife-specific rules or procedures
Not at this point, not that I'm aware of.
in any other projects like the Culver project or plans?
Not that I'm aware of. Yes, sir.
To answer Larry's question about the nutrient load, the amount of inflow has a lot to do with the nutrient load during the drawdowns. Some years the reservoir is very, even on drawdowns, the reservoir is very clean, the water quality is very good. Right now, the nutrient load is being disturbed south of Cypress Bayou. There's a lot of nutrient in the water. That water south of Cypress Bayou is turbid at best. It's rough. It's completely full of nutrient because of the storms that they've been having down south. Most of that water right now is being filtered out when it gets to Orange Springs Flat because of the coontail, so that the water being displaced going through the dam right now at this current time is actually very clean because it's going through that big filter of Orange Springs.
I think I heard you say earlier, Mickey, that you decided to length of the drawdown based on tradition.
Well, yeah, and how it was determined from that 4-year study, experimental study, that Corps funded from 79 to 83. So when I came into the job, the regime was basically set. And I've mimicked that since then,
But
because it
is
seems to work.
is it more fluid? Okay, I get it, not 2 years, but is the window more fluid?
Well, it used to be every 3 years they were done, and I can tell you from a drawdown history sheet, we've done them, I think, 4 years apart. This will be the third 4 years apart. Yeah, because we went 07 to 08, then 11 to 12, and then 15 to 16. So they've started to go in 4-year increments instead of 3.
But the window of the drawdown, is that more fluid?
Well, actually, the last drawdown 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, it was a very docile hurricane season. The consumptive use permit we have from Water Management District said we could start the water down no earlier than October 1st. Looked like a very low probability of tropical systems affecting us. So we started the water down from an 18-foot level right around October 1st and started it down 2 weeks earlier than typically had been done.